Life with CIDP can be tough, but the Thrive Team, a specialized squad of experts, helps people living with CIDP make more room in their lives for joy. Watch Rare, Well Done.
An all-new reality series, Rare Well Done, offers help and hope to people across the country who live with the rare disease CIDP. Watch the latest episode now, exclusively on rarewelldone.com.
Going outside is so in during Springfest at Lowe's. For a limited time, get extra big deals on select Holland pavers, 3 for $1. Plus, save $70 on a Charbroil Performance 4-burner grill, now $179. And chef-up shareables for your whole crew. Picture-perfect patios and good food? Yes, please. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 3/30 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Paver offer exclusive. Alaska and Hawaii.
August 1994. It's really early morning on the lower Hawkesbury River. Mark Peterson knows this stretch of water, the way you know a road you've driven 1,000 times before. By feel, by instinct. He can read the ripples on the water, the breeze across the bow. He can extrapolate data from the circling birds. All of this to help him find as much squid as his trawler can hold. He's been doing this job for as long as he can remember. Couldn't see himself anywhere but out here on the Hawkesbury. The Lady Marion is his vessel, and tonight she's working her way up the channel in the dark. The net dragging along the river floor, sifting through the cold silt for whatever's down there. Squid trawling is slow, physical work. You set the net, you wait, you watch the water. The diesel engine, a low, constant hum. And the river at night is wide and dark, punctuated by the distant lights of the small settlements along the bank. Brooklyn, Patonga, Dangar Island, and not much else. It's predictable work, repetitive, just how Peterson likes it. Except this morning. This morning, something is different. The net snags hard, not the usual light resistance of a good haul, not the drag of weed or a submerged log. This is a dead stop, a stop that comes from something very heavy, something wedged, something that does not want to move. Peterson works the winch. The block and tackle takes up the strain. The rope goes taut, trembling with the load, and for a long moment nothing happens at all. Then slowly, it begins to move. Whatever is down there, 9 metres below the surface, on the soft, dark floor of the Hawkesbury, is coming up. Peterson can feel and hear the weight of it through the whole vessel. He adjusts the angle, keeps the tension. The winch groans. It takes time, but slowly, surely, it heads towards the side of the boat. And then, breaking the surface in a surge of black water, something unusual clears the side of the boat. Like nothing Peterson has ever dragged from these depths before. It's black plastic sheeting wound tight, and it's attached to a frame of some sort. The whole thing is just dripping and still. Peterson leans in. One of the plastic bags has torn in the retrieval. There's a bone sticking out of it. It's unmistakably a human bone. I'm your storyteller, Mark. Welcome back to Struth, where we explore stories from the strange edges of Australian history. And tonight, we're heading back into the Hawkesbury River. We've been here before, of course. Last time we ventured into these waters, we were tracking the Hawkesbury River monster. That long tradition of reported sightings of something large and inexplicable moving through those dark tidal waters north of Sydney. Locals who swore they'd seen something that had no business being there, something rising from the deep. And I do wonder whether Peterson thought he might have snagged the Hawkesbury River monster on that particular morning. But this time, instead, the monster wasn't in the river. This time, the monster is the one who put something into that dark, murky water. The monster was all too human. When the Broken Bay Water Police arrived and took charge of what Peterson had pulled from the floor of the channel near Cowan Creek, just past Challenger Head, they were confronted with something the likes of which none of them had ever encountered before. And when that black wrapping was carefully removed at the New South Wales Institute of Forensic Medicine in Glebe the following morning, the full picture became horrifyingly clear. So let's go through it carefully, because, as they say, the devil is in the detail. The outer layer that Peterson saw was black plastic sheeting. Several passes of it wound around the contents with deliberate thoroughness. Beneath that, 2 large plastic bags that had been placed specifically over what investigators would quickly identify as the victim's head. Those 2 bags were sealed. The whole assembly had been bound in place with wire and orange rope, looped around the body and the frame in multiple passes. It was a non-slip rope noose, and it had been fixed around the neck and the torso. There are conflicting reports about the frame that the body was attached to, but the most widely reported description is as follows. The frame beneath the plastic was welded steel, a flat length of metal, roughly 182 centimetres from end to end, the height of a tall man, 6 foot in the old, with 2 bars fixed across it, and a further 2 bent rods holding the body into position. I'll put some photos onto our social media pages. Just check it out on Instagram if you want to have a look for yourself. The remains were catalogued under the designation Unknown Human Remains E48293. A John Doe. A nobody. Until someone said otherwise. The clothing our John Doe was wearing was recorded carefully. The victim wore a medium-sized polo shirt, branded Everything Australian, a logo that investigators would later trace to a company that used it between 1982 and 1987. It was distributed through roughly 23 different retail stores. He was wearing dark tracksuit pants branded No Sweat, underpants sized for an 85 centimetre waist branded Sparrow, and in the pockets, a packet of Benson & Hedges cigarettes and a pink lighter. Importantly and frustratingly, there was no wallet, no keys, no cards, no identification of any kind. Whatever this man had been carrying that might have named him had been removed before he went into the water. Everything that was left behind was generic, mass-produced, untraceable to a specific purchase. Whoever put him in the river had been thorough. The post-mortem was conducted the following morning by forensic pathologist Dr. Christopher Lawrence. What he found, and what he couldn't find, would define the next 2.5 decades of this investigation. The victim was male, Caucasian, somewhere between 30 and 45 years of age, approximately 163 centimetres tall. He had brown hair, and he'd been dead long enough that his fingerprints were gone entirely, eroded by the water beyond any hope of recovery. His DNA was extracted, but the degradation was severe. With the technology available in 1994, remember this is the dawn of DNA being used in criminal cases, the amount and the quality of that was extracted was effectively useless. The cause of death was determined as blunt force trauma to the head, Whoever killed this man had beaten him with something heavy, repeatedly, with enough force to stave in his skull. Lawrence, the forensic pathologist, could not determine whether the victim was alive or dead when he was strapped to the cross. He could not say whether he was conscious when he went into the river. Those questions would remain open. The body had simply been there too long. What Lawrence could say, and what immediately told investigators this was no ordinary murder, was about the cross itself. The steel frame weighed 43 kilograms. It had been welded with what one investigator later described as alarming professionalism. Clean joints, precise angles. It was built to last, and built by someone who knew what they were doing. And here's the detail, once you hear it, that's very difficult to forget. The crosspiece toward the top of the rack, the outstretched arms of the frame, matched the victim's own arm span exactly. This wasn't scrap metal thrown together in a panic. It was custom built. Someone had measured this man and then fabricated a steel crucifix to fit him, like a tailor would fit a suit. That takes time. It takes tools. It takes knowledge. It takes skill, and it takes, at the very least, more than one person. Because nobody carries a 43 kilogram steel frame to the edge of a river alone in the dark.
Owning a home is full of surprises. Some wonderful, some not so much. And when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. That's why HomeServe exists. For as little as $4.99 a month, you'll always have someone to call. A trusted professional ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. That's homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Detective Sergeant Gary Williams of the Major Crime Squad, based out of Chatswood, took charge of the investigation. He would later describe it as one of the most baffling cases he had ever faced. With a victim who had no name, no prints, and completely degraded DNA. Williams understood quickly that standard investigative approaches were not going to be enough. He needed people who could pull information from evidence that seemed to have nothing left to give. And so one by one, he assembled his crack team. Forensic odontologist Dr. Chris Griffiths of the University of Sydney was the first specialist Williams brought in. He's a man who would later lead the identification effort for victims of the 2002 Bali bombing. Such was his high standing in the field. Griffiths examined the teeth with the attention of someone who knows that a mouth holds records long after everything else has surrendered them. And what he found was this: no fillings. One missing molar, removed in youth rather than through decay. The teeth were largely healthy, which suggested that the victim hadn't lived in obvious poverty. But the absence of dental work was a double-edged finding. No fillings meant no dental records, and no dental records meant no match. Next, Williams turned to Emeritus Professor Donald Anderson from the University of Sydney School of Biological Sciences. Anderson's task was unusual even by the standards of this case. He was asked to examine 2 barnacles that had attached themselves to the steel frame while it sat on the river floor. Anderson, you see, had the unique ability to hold a small crustacean under a microscope and tell you something useful about periods of time. His estimate, the wrack had been submerged for less than a year, though he wouldn't rule out longer. That window put the body in the water sometime between late 93 and mid-1994. From the Adelaide Forensic Science Centre, Williams brought in forensic hair analyst Silvana Tritico to examine the hairs recovered from the remains. Tritico's findings were that they were human, black, most likely Caucasian, and possibly Mediterranean in origin. And then there was, by far, the biggest clue they had to go by: the face. With no prints, no DNA, no dental records to match. The only way to put this man in front of the public was to rebuild him. And a PhD anatomy student, Maya Satisno, working under forensic anthropologist Dr. Denise Donlan at the University of Sydney, took on this grim task. The skull was measured. Tissue depths were calculated using established forensic tables. The features were constructed layer by careful layer. Brow, cheekbones, jaw, the particular geometry of the eye sockets. And when it was finished, Donlan offered a profile. Male, most likely at the younger end of the estimated range, and possibly of Italian, Austrian, or Czechoslovakian descent. Detective Senior Constable Phil Redmond then worked the reconstruction into computer-enhanced images with various hairstyles and angles. Enough variation to cast a wide net. The images, which we'll also post on our socials, went to the newspapers. They went on television, on the primetime crime show, Australia's Most Wanted. More than 32 callers rang in with possible identities, but none of them could be confirmed. Several had to be methodically eliminated, and that process took years. Christopher Dale Flannery was one of the first names to surface. Known in Sydney underworld circles as Mr. Rent-a-Kill, Flannery was a professional hitman who had worked for organised crime figures and was suspected of involvement in more than a dozen murders. He had vanished in May 1985, widely believed to have been killed by the same underworld he served. His name had haunted New South Wales police for nearly a decade, and when the Rack Man emerged from the Hawkesbury, rumours began to swirl. Flannery was the kind of victim who would receive this type of meticulous death. Dental records were checked, and they didn't match. Joe Peter Biviano was a far more compelling candidate. A convicted drug dealer from the inner west suburb of Drummoyne, Biviano had disappeared in December 1993, squarely within the window the barnacle evidence suggested. He was the right height, the right build, the right colouring. His description overlapped with the forensic reconstruction in ways that kept investigators returning to his file. And so DNA was obtained from Biviano's sister and tested against the remains. It didn't match. Peter Mitras, a Greek-Australian businessman who had vanished from King's Cross in April 1991, was also investigated, but he was eliminated quickly. Mitras stood 182 centimetres tall. He was nearly 20 centimetres taller than the Rack Man, and his sister identified the teeth as wrong. And in 1995, the case went before New South Wales State Coroner Derek Windsor Hand. He returned an open verdict. Cause of death, blunt force trauma. Identity, unknown. Date and place of death, unknown. The man from the Hawkesbury remained a nobody on paper. A $100,000 reward was posted. It sat there, unclaimed, like an admission that everyone had run out of ideas. The rackman went into a drawer and the case went cold. It's a Tuesday morning in Sydney, and John Lehman is at his desk before most of the building has arrived. The Unsolved homicide team that Lehman is part of runs on early starts, plenty of percolated coffee, and the particular discipline of men and women who have trained themselves not to need instant resolution. Lehman has a file open in front of him. He's opened it before, more times than he'd care to count. There's photographs, lab reports, a face rebuilt from a skull, a list of names that led nowhere, a reward that sat in the newspaper for years and never produced a thing. He's been with the Unsolved homicide team long enough to know that cold cases don't reward impatience. They reward the willingness to go back one more time with whatever the intervening years have produced. And this particular file has a name in it. A name that was never eliminated. A man who matched the description, who vanished at the right time. The DNA that was run in 1994 was inconclusive, but the technology of the time was vastly inferior to what the Unsolved homicide team had access to now. And it's not 1994 anymore. Lehman's own hairline is testament to that. He closes the file, picks up the phone, and makes the call. The name is Max Tancevski. Max was 36 years old when he vanished. Born on the 13th of May 1956 of Macedonian heritage. He lived with his partner in Newtown, the inner western suburb that runs along King Street. A long, colourful spine of terrace houses and corner pubs. He was approximately 163 centimetres tall. Brown hair, brown eyes, fair complexion. He had a face that, held up against Maya Sutisno's forensic reconstruction, with some generosity, wasn't inconsistent with the face rebuilt from that skull. But what Lehman finds most significant isn't Max's appearance. It's his life. Max Tancevski was a gambler. Not casually, seriously, compulsively. The Gold Coast was his second home. Well, as close to a second home as a man with a partner in Newtown could manage. Jupiter's Casino at Broadbeach, the sprawling complex that would later become the Star Gold Coast, was a place he knew well. The casino floor in the early 1990s, the audaciously patterned carpet, the jingling of the pokies, the way time dissolves once you're inside. Max would make the trip north and stay for days, sometimes longer. He sat at tables and rode the ups and downs with a particular optimism that only a committed gambler can sustain across a losing streak. From time to time, he borrowed money to keep playing, and he came home when it ran out. And so, as many gamblers do, Max had debts. Multiple creditors, various amounts, the accumulated weight of too many trips to Queensland, and not enough big wins to cover them. On the 11th of January 1993, Max walked out of his Newtown home with $1,800 in cash, withdrawn from the bank that same day. It was a significant sum, but a familiar one. For his partner, Max's disappearance wasn't immediately alarming. He'd done this before. Crashed and burned on the tables at Jupiter's and returned home with his tail between his legs. So the withdrawal and the disappearance fit a pattern, except only this time he didn't come back. His partner eventually reported him missing. His image was placed on registries in both New South Wales and Queensland. But that's where the trail effectively ended. By the time anyone was looking seriously, if the barnacle evidence is correct, Max had already been on the bottom of the Hawkesbury River for weeks. In August 2018, New South Wales Deputy State Coroner Paul McMahon made it official. The DNA match was confirmed. The remains recovered from the Hawkesbury River on the 11th of August 1994 were those of Max Tancevski. McMahon's formal finding was precise and, in its precision, quietly devastating. Max Tancevski died on or about the 11th of January 1993 at an undetermined location within the Sydney metropolitan area. The cause of his death was blunt force head injuries inflicted by a person or persons unknown. He had been on the bottom of that river for 18 months before Peterson's net finally found him, and he'd been nameless for 24 years after that. But finally Max Tancevski did have a name, and the case still had plenty of unanswered questions. Most notably, who sent Max to his watery grave, and why had they gone to such incredible effort to do so? The first mystery is about the cross itself, and what exactly it was built to do. There are two schools of thought here, and they're not mutually exclusive. The first is practical. A 43-kilogram steel frame, attached to a body wrapped in plastic and bound with wire, was engineered to keep that body on the river floor indefinitely. This was an efficient disposal method. The cross served not just to hold the body in place but also as ballast. And for 18 months, in 9 metres of dark Hawkesbury water, it worked exactly as intended. But the second reading about this mystery is harder to dismiss, because there are much easier ways to weigh down a body. Concrete blocks, engine parts, a heavy object that doesn't require professional fabrication. The deliberateness of the cross shape, the care in its construction, the fact that it was custom built to the victim's measurements. These point beyond mere practicality. They point to intention, to authorship. In certain criminal traditions, the manner of death is as important as the death itself. In the criminal ecosystem of early 1990 Sydney, an era of corrupt police, organised crime, and an underworld that was well connected to the casino economy, a crucified body in a frequently used waterway would have been understood by the right people as precisely what it was. A warning, a demonstration of what happens when debts go unpaid. The cross wasn't religious, it was a balance sheet, settled violently. There is a theory, unverified but persistent among researchers and investigators, that the cross carried specific symbolic weight in the subculture of criminal debt collection operating at the margins of Sydney's gambling scene in that era. That the manner of the killing was calculated to communicate something beyond the fact of death. That this man had betrayed someone, or stolen, or owed something so significant that an ordinary killing wasn't sufficient. The ceremony was the point. The dominant investigative theory centres on gambling debt. Tancevski did owe money to people who operated outside the ordinary mechanisms of dispute resolution. When he couldn't repay, or wouldn't repay those debts, they killed him, and they displayed him, because the display carried a message that a body quietly buried in the bush could never send. Whether the intended audience had ever received that message, we don't know. The intended audience, if this theory is true, wouldn't be the sort of people to make themselves known to the broader public. But what we do know is this: whoever built that cross had professional welding skills and access to equipment. They had the resources and experience to plan and execute a killing with this level of deliberateness. They had enough people involved to transport 43 kilograms of steel and a body to the edge of a river after dark. And they have, for more than 30 years, with $100,000 up for grabs, said nothing. The case was referred back to the New South Wales Police Unsolved Homicide Unit after the 2018 identification. It's one of roughly 500 cold cases under review. The $100,000 award posted in 1995 remains unclaimed. Somewhere, in an evidence facility maintained by the New South Wales Police, that steel cross still exists. 43 kilograms of precisely welded metal, built exactly to the measurements of a man who borrowed too much money from the wrong people and walked out of his house on a January morning in 1993 into whatever was waiting for him. The river gave him up, eventually. The rest of it, so far, it's keeping to itself. Truth. Well, that's it for another episode of Struth. If you'd like to hear more Struth episodes, why not join us over on Struth Premium at Patreon? You'll get access to a bonus episode each and every week, and you'll also receive our weekly regular content a week early and ad-free. Just follow the Patreon links if you want to find out more. Next week on Struth, we're taking to the skies, and we're chasing down Australia's most famous, most amazing, most devastating UFO encounter. I'll catch you then.